Hi again. Okay, so we're reading about Lorenzo Dow Watson, and he just is living at Lissy's brother's house that's unoccupied, all by himself, so that the marshals don't try to arrest him. Well, they're trying to arrest him, but don't actually arrest him. So this is what Alma, his daughter, is remembering. I remember being told by Mother to take a bucket that was warm to carry and seemed. Oh, wait a minute, let me just read this. I remember being told by Mother to take a bucket that was warm to carry and seemed filled with something hot. I was to go down through the orchard to my uncle's place and watch very closely as I walked. It was in the back way, and if no one was in sight, I was to walk up to the back door of the empty house, open it, and walk to the stair steps. There I was to exchange the hot bucket for an empty one. Then I was to very cautiously look about, pick some apples, and walk home. This I later was told was the food for my father. Okay, I don't even know if she knew that he was staying there at the time when she was that little girl or young woman. Watson's health was never good after the experience in the army, and he had reoccurring attacks of scurvy and malaria. By late winter, these uncomfortable conditions began to tell on him. He soon caught a cold which became so severe that Lissy felt she dared not leave him alone where he was, so she took him to her home. On the morning of December 21st, 1888, Deputy Marshal Gleason, a sergeant, appeared at Lissy's home and demanded entrance. As Watson was too sick with pneumonia to get out of bed, Lissy took the mattress and bedding of the trundle bed and placed it over him, and had the three little children climb on the bed and cover themselves as if they had slept there. Lissy let the marshals in, and Gleason took charge. Flourishing a loaded and cocked pistol, he staggered from room to room. On his return to the front room, he saw Watson's foot uncovered and sticking out from under the mattresses. He told Watson to get out of there or he would fix him so he couldn't. Lissy pleaded, telling him how sick he was and that he could not be moved at all. Gleason then turned and cocked the cocked gun on Lissy and said, "Shut up, or I will shut you up. I have taken enough from you." Lissy had never seen or spoken to Gleason before. He undoubtedly mistook her for her sister, Delilah Clark Dalton, whom he had pulled out of bed months before when searching for her husband, Edward Dalton, and she had given him a tongue lashing. Just as this was happening, Lissy's brother Edgar appeared. The son, Clare, sensing the danger, had gone for him. Gleason was too intoxicated to reason with, so a wagon was provided with a bed in the bottom. Two men carried Watson out and placed him on the bed. With unmerciful cursing and lashing of horses, the group left Parowan and arrived in Beaver. A doctor pronounced Watson too ill to be taken to jail or to sit up long enough to be put under bond. So an ever-faithful friend, Fayette Shepherd, took him to his home where Watson was nursed and cared for by him and his good wife until he was able to be put under bond. A deputy U.S. Marshal, William McGarry, guarded him off and on. In their conversation, they found that each had fought for the Union of his country, and that Watson's cavalry regiment was the one that had made a raid on a certain southern prison and released northern prisoners. McGarry was one of these prisoners released. When McGarry found this out, he told Watson that he wouldn't guard him another hour. Meanwhile, he could make his escape. While McGarry went to report to his superior officer. Watson answered that he had too much respect for a man who had offered his life for his country to jeopardize him. There was no unfairness shown by those who interpreted the law, as will be seen by the statement of U.S. Marshal Dubious of Idaho. After selecting material for a jury, he said, "Now I have a jury that will convict any Mormon charged with UC, whether innocent or guilty." Honorable Harry M. Teller, a Coloradoan, said, referring to a visit to Utah in the days of Judge McKean, "I have myself left the courtroom in that territory outraged, so I could not stay there, for fear, as a member of the court and having a right to be heard at the bar, I should be compelled to rebuke the presiding judge. I have heard from the bench things that could not have been uttered in the state that I represent without taking the judge from the bench. I have heard them on more than one occasion, and they were repeated so as to be an everyday occurrence in that court for years. I say that there is no state in the Union and no territory in this Union that would have submitted to such things a single month. Those people submitted for 4 straight years. Mormons have," this is still in quotes, "Mormons have their faults, but they also have their virtues. Polygamy would have died long ago if federal officials sent to Utah had not irritated and persecuted the Mormon people." Reference the martyrdom of Joseph Standing by John Nicholson. Watson was again sentenced to serve 6 months in the state penitentiary with a fine of $300. This time he entered the penitentiary in December 1888 and came out Friday, June 21st, 1889. Each time he was sent to the penitentiary, his families had to get along on what they themselves could work for or do with. They had a good living when their father was at home. After Watson's second term in the prison pen, he returned to his home and set about to make some kind of income for his families. He decided to gather his horses and try to sell some. So he took his sons Clare and Millard into the mountains to gather any horses of his that he could find. It was not long before Mr. Stuckey, a man from Santa Clara, Utah, Washington County, came to buy a horse. Father sold him a mare by the name of Victorian and took molasses and dried fruit for a down payment. This man tied the horse in the stable with a hair rope. as he was remaining in Parowan over the night. The horse got her leg over the rope in the night, and it cut her leg so deeply that when she was found in the morning, it was too late to save her life. An adjustment had to be made because of the down payment. This was straightened out to the satisfaction of both parties. Watson owned over 100 head of horses at this time. He rounded them up that fall and turned them over to the Brown boys, Brig and John, to take to the desert and look after. I remember Father saying that he let them have over 100 head, but after 3 years didn't get back 1/4 as many, including the colts that had been born during that time. After Father rounded up the horses, he decided to haul firewood for the winter. Many of the men in that small community hauled their own firewood and also sold to those who could not go into the mountains, cut the timber, and bring it out. Watson had a good team of horses, Glass Eye and Doc, and a good wagon, so he began hauling. He took his son Clare with him. Clare was strong and large for his 14 years, and was very good help for his father. They had hauled 2 loads, and before returning for the 3rd load, Watson sent Clare to take the rough log chain to the blacksmith, Carl Rasmussen, there we go, to have it fixed. He made the statement, "A chain is no stronger than its weakest link." One link of the iron chain was nearly worn through and needed welding. After the chain was fixed, the wagon was in order. They left for the mountains the next morning. It took 2 days to make the trip, one to go up the mountain and one to load and return. As they started home down an exceedingly steep grade, the chain broke right there, right where it had been welded, and the load slipped forward into the horse's heels. Watson immediately looked back to see where his son was, but did not see Clare, as the impact of the load hitting the horses had sent him forward just behind his father. Watson jumped off the load, thinking his son was already off. Then Clare followed, but he did not jump far enough and came down in front of the hind wheel, which passed over his body. A horseman rode to town for help. Lissy's brother, Edgar Clark, came to tell his sister, but he refused to take her with him, saying she would only be in the way and that he would return with the father and son as soon as possible, and she could take care of them then. Lissy pled with him to take her, but Edgar left her standing there crying her heart out, and he drove away. All day Clare lived, asking for his mother. He drank quantities of water. Help came, but not his mother. He looked up and with his last breath said, "Oh, didn't my mama come?" Watson was not seriously injured, but badly bruised. When Clare's body was brought home, Lissy did not cry. In fact, she seemed to be frozen inside. This condition lasted for over a year. Then one day, as she walked under the orchard trees, she began to cry, and cried hysterically for about an hour. After this, she became calm and made emotional adjustments to her great loss. Alma and Clare were very close in feelings. Clare was just 1 year and 9 months younger than Alma. was working at Armstrong's ranch that summer. The ranch was in Braffett's Canyon near Summit, Utah. On the morning of September 13th, she was up early as usual. She was building a fire outside to heat water for cheese making, when a young man by the name of Will Ward rode up on a black horse. Alma knew him very well. He usually spent time with a friendly greeting, but this morning was quite curt. He asked for Joe Armstrong, and she sent him to the bunkhouse. Almost immediately, Joe came out of the bunkhouse and went to saddle a horse. Will followed Alma into the house, and holding on the rafters, which most ranch houses have, told her that her brother Clare was dead and the father injured. What a shock to Alma. She left immediately on horseback for home. Will Ward accompanied her. They rode to the Armstrong home in Enoch, a small town just northwest of Cedar City, Utah. From there, she was taken to Parowan in a buggy. Clare lacked 1 month of being 14 years of age. He was born October 14th, 1875, and died September 12th, 1889. Doc and Mary were the 2 horses father had on the load of wood when the brake chain broke and let the load onto their heels, and they started to run and kick. Doc had been a famous kicker, but father had each day let a sack of straw down on his heels and broken him of kicking. Mary was a gray mare with an extremely good disposition. After Clare's death, father couldn't stand to have these 2 horses around, so he sold them. Just 1 year before Clare's death, he had gone to bed for the night when he had an unusual experience. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning when Mother heard Clare talking. He was in the room next to Mother's bedroom. When she heard him talking, she asked why and to whom was he talking at this time of night, when he should be asleep. In a few minutes, Clare came to the bedroom and told her the unusual experience. He had been lying in bed, did not know if awake or asleep, but a light came into the room, and immediately he awoke and saw 2 boys about his age, clothed in white, and seemed to come down through the air. They were extremely good looking, and as they stood by his bed, they asked him to go with them. Clare told them he did not want to go because he did not want to leave his mother or father. Then one of the 2, who seemed to be a little older, said they would return for Clare in a year. At that, they left, and then it was Clare walked into his mother's bedroom to tell her. As near as we could figure, it was a year to the day from the time of this experience when Clare was killed. Okay, I think I'll stop there a little bit. Who knows? Yes, that'll be great. Still in the state penitentiary heading, but that's what I'm going to stop at. All right, take care.